Hi, I'm Tom Brookshire.
And I'm Pat Summerall. As we head into the third week of the NFL schedule, only 5 of the 26 teams in pro football have won both their games.
Let's see, that would be Dallas and Washington in the NFC, and in the AFC, Miami, Cincinnati, and Joe Namath. I think I mean the New York Jets.
Well, Namath and the Jets were certainly something to behold last Sunday in Baltimore. In fact, they've scored 85 points so far in their 2 games. And we'll take a long look at Joe and the Jets later in the show.
We've also got some pretty startling upsets to show you. Just to name one, how about Buffalo over San Francisco?
Well, Tom, that one sure startled me. Also, at the end of the show, we'll again have our new feature, our selection of the best of the week.
And don't forget our fearless predictions. One of us is never wrong, and I think that's right.
After an opening Monday night loss to the Washington Redskins, the Minnesota Vikings faced the Detroit Lions in an early must-win game for both teams.
Against a pea-soup fog in Detroit, a backdrop suitable for either a Sherlock Holmes mystery movie or a grim Central Division struggle, the Minnesota Vikings visited Tiger Stadium, seeking their 9th consecutive victory over the resident Detroit Lions. Of course, the return of number 10, Fran Tarkenton, is the big difference in the black and blue division this year. And Tarkenton and slick outside receiver John Gilliam had a whole new dimension in difficulty for those who would try to unseat the Vikes as the perennial champions of the NFC Central Division. Tarkenton supplied the key play in Minnesota's first goalward thrust. Whether you call it scrambling or opportunistic offense, Fran stepped deep into Detroit territory. Then Dave Osborne burst through a trap at right guard for 14 yards and a touchdown. A replay shows us the right guard Milt Sunday caught number 53 middle linebacker Mike Lucci in a blitz. And number 62 left guard Eddie White closed the trap on number 70 Larry Woods, and Osborne was home free. Tarkenton took it in again with the help of John Gilliam on a 40-yard pass, and Detroit was in a hole. The combative Carl Kosalki, number 29, picked Landry's pocket first. And facing the Purple Gang was not a fortunate circumstance for Greg Landry. Number 20, Bobby Bryant's cat burglary, was followed, if less artfully, by a couple of blunt heists by Roy Winston and number 59, Lonnie Warwick. Warwick's interception served to greet number 19, Bill Munson, Minnesota Viking style. All these thefts, of course, kept Take-It-In Tarkenton rather busy. Fran set up one score with a pitch to Dave Osborne. And he collected his second touchdown pass of the day with a 13-yard strike to Dave Osborne, who took it in standing up Viking style, making it 34-10 in the end.
In their opener against New Orleans, the Rams' offense looked quite healthy.
However, last week in Chicago, the Rams were going nowhere, but then neither were the Chicago Bears.
This is not Chicago coach Abe Gibron, who's giving some last-minute instructions to quarterback John Hewitt. This is Chicago coach Abe Gibron, and although he has yet to win a game, he is smiling because he has just found out that this man will not be starting for the Rams. For once again, Roman Gabriel is injured. However, the Ram defense started fast. They were led by number 74, Merlin Olsen, who's been very tough so far this year. And it was the Los Angeles defense in the person of number 21, Gene Howard, and his theft that put the Rams ahead. Then Roman Gabriel came in. It would have been better if he hadn't. Gary Lyle, number 44, picked off this pass. And then Bobby Douglas connected with number 82, tight end Earl Thomas. And in a game that saw every score come as a result of turnovers and mistakes, the Rams were not to be outdone. The Rams' last two mistakes led to two Chicago field goals, which led to two 13s being posted on the scoreboard. How unlucky for both of them.
Norm Van Brocklin's Falcons would be alone in first place right now, except for one small detail at the end of last week's game in New England.
After a disastrous opening game against Cincinnati the week before, the New England Patriots were ready to start performing miracles again. But when Carl Garrett went out with strained knee ligaments, it seemed as though the year's first touchdown would never come. Then number 31, Garrett's sub, rookie Josh Ashton, took over, led the Patriots to a 7-6 halftime lead over the Atlanta Falcons. But for most of the game, things were not so rosy for Jim Plunkett and the Patriots. The Falcons out-statistic New England in every category. Number 25, fullback Art Malone, rushed for 70 yards and caught 6 passes for 77 more. Quarterback Bob Berry enjoyed another productive afternoon with over 200 yards passing. Art Malone's third quarter touchdown put the Falcons ahead 13-7. But Malone wasn't the only Atlanta runner to torment the New Englanders. Malone's new running mate, former Packer Dave Hampton, caught a pass for 43 yards and rushed for 97 more. Hampton also scored a third quarter touchdown as the Falcons rolled up nearly 400 yards in total offense. There were times when the Falcons' offense failed to score a seemingly easy touchdown, but Atlanta nevertheless held a rather comfortable 20-7 lead entering the final period. But some funny things happened to the Falcons on the way to first place in the NFC West. First, Jim Plunkett found Rabbit Vataha. Moments later, Plunkett had the ball again, briefly. New England retained possession, and Carl Garrett, bad knee and all, cakewalked to the touchdown which put the Patriots ahead 21-20. With 28 seconds to play, the Falcons had one final chance at victory. But somehow a 10-yard field goal attempt by Bill Bell did not get through the uprights, and New England had their first miracle of 1972, 21-20.
While the Patriots were certainly surprising, Pat, the Cleveland Browns also had a new look last week.
And that new look was provided by young Mike Phipps, who finally might have stepped out of Bill Nelson's shadow.
While Eagle management greeted the fans, Eagle fans greeted the management. For the Eagle defense, led by linebacker Steve Zabel, the target was young quarterback Mike Phipps of the Browns. Phipps withstood the punishment and countered neatly with well-orchestrated drives led by tough-running Leroy Kelly, number 44. Kelly's running set up the pass, and Phipps expertly skewered the Eagles' zone. While Phipps enjoyed a brilliant afternoon, Eagles quarterback Pete Lisp did not. His body buckled often beneath the fierce Browns' charge, and his ill-disguised screen played right into the hands of Bob Briggs, number 84. Briggs' interception set up a Phipps lob to Frank Pitts, who actually stole a touchdown away from the Eagle defense. In the third quarter, Phipps rolled left and kept on rolling to a touchdown that gave Cleveland a solid 27-3 lead. Into the game came quarterback John Reeves, who rallied the Eagles from flat on his back. Reeves then arched a scoring shot to tiny Harold Jackson that narrowed the margin to 27-10. Another look shows that the brash rookie took a head-on shot from Jerry Shirk and never saw the results of his throw. The touchdown was not only Reeves' first as a pro, but the Eagles' first touchdown of the season. Everyone enjoyed it immensely. In the last quarter, Bill Bradley's juggling interception set up another Philadelphia touchdown. But Super Bill's heroics were not enough to stem the Browns, who walked off laughing with a 27-17 victory. For the once optimistic Eddie Cayette, it was another long, long run to the locker room.
In Green Bay last week, one play by the Raiders was the game breaker, and that one play was also a record breaker.
In Green Bay last week, the parking lot was jammed as Packer fans turned out to see their green and gold go up against the silver and black Raiders from Oakland. Packer coach Dan Devine was seen for the first time in a while without his crutches. But he had an even better crutch in quarterback coach Bart Starr, who's been a big help in developing Scott Hunter, number 16. Hunter got the pack moving early on a perfect strike to John Brockington. And Big Bad John continued to gobble up ground as he raced to the 6-inch line. He then rammed it in the last 6 inches, and the Packers led 7-3. But when Green Bay threatened again, the Raiders came up with that one big play for which they're so famous. Fumble or lateral, whatever, Jack Tatum scooped up the football and raced 104 yards to break the record for fumble returns, which was held by Chicago Bears owner George Halas, and which had lasted for 49 years. Despite the Raiders' lightning bolt, the Packers were undaunted. Scott Hunter's throw to 13-year veteran receiver Carroll Dale met with pass interference along the way. The Packers then capitalized with another short Brockington touchdown to lead 14-13. But then Darryl LaMonica found his great rookie receiver from Villanova, number 49, Mike Ciani. And Ciani put the Raiders in excellent striking distance. Number 23, Charlie Smith, struck for 6 as the Raiders outlasted the Pack and evened their record at 1-1 and joined 3 other teams in first place in the AFC West. Raiders 20, Packers 14.
Well, Tom, the Raiders got right back into the thick of that scramble in the AFC West. A 4-way tie for first.
It couldn't be much tighter, Pat. San Diego and Denver saw to that.
Charger fans journeyed to San Diego Stadium with apprehension. The spark of optimism generated by Harlan Savari's 20-trade rebuilding program had been dulled by an opening season walloping in San Francisco. San Diegans wondered if anything remained of their dream team. The sight they saw was not encouraging. 2 starters, Jerry Levias and Chris Fletcher, were already out for the season with knee injuries. The Denver Broncos added more gloom to the Charger horizon on the opening kickoff. Rapid Randy Montgomery, a 9'3" sprinter from Weber State, blazed the distance, and the upstart Broncos were suddenly thinking about a second straight victory for new head coach John Ralston. And another week in an unfamiliar position, all alone at the top of the Western Division. With the toughest schedule in the NFL coming up, San Diego was already facing a crisis situation. Stop the Broncos or start rebuilding for next year. Denver did score one more time when Steve Ramsey rocked in on a quarterback draw. But this touchdown came 55 minutes after Montgomery's spectacular. For the rest of the game, Denver moved the ball well, but continually fell inches short of the big play. The Broncos scored first and last, but San Diego blew them off the field in between. Mini Mike Garrett popped one up the middle as he added 104 yards to the ground game. John Hadel in the dormant Charger passing game also sparked to life, and Gary Garrison came down with 6 points. To balance the field, Hadel then looked the other way, and new Charger Davy Williams added his touch to the point explosion. As San Diego points piled up, John Ralston could scarcely stand to watch. He tried to remember the last time things had been like this at Stanford. To stabilize his team, Ralston inserted veteran quarterback Charlie Johnson, number 12. Number 40, Joe Beauchamp, greeted Johnson with one of 6 San Diego interceptions for the day. In the end, the Chargers had come back for a vital 37-14 victory, and time had run out on Denver's one-week stay at the top. Don Shula has those Miami Dolphins off to a great start this year, Tom. In fact, the Minnesota coach Bud Grant told me he thinks they have more offensive firepower than any other team in pro football.
And they do it in Syrian heat or driving rain. They look almost unbeatable, Pat, under any condition.
The wind whipped up a gale in Miami's Orange Bowl, and the normally mistake-proof Dolphins started off looking like a carnival act. But soggy polyturf does not discriminate. The Houston Oilers matched Miami in madness for a total of 8 fumbles. That's all the Oilers could match them in, as Miami had all the horses when they held on to the ball. Quarter horse Jim Kick bucked to the 1 to set up his own touchdown. And an even faster pony, Mercury Morris, number 22, raced up and down the slippery mat for 94 total yards. Miami even had a reserve thoroughbred in the stable as third-string running back Hubert Ginn, number 32, added to Miami's 450 yards on total offense. Meanwhile, the Oilers kept coming out second best in their struggle with the wet rug. Houston kept right on stumbling and coughing up the ball, and Bob Greasy and the Dolphins scored often and early, en route to a commanding 27-0 lead. The Oiler offense now consisted of number 7, Dan Pastorini, scrambling for anything he could get. Pastorini's long day finally brightened a bit as he ferreted out Charlie Joyner for an 82-yard consolation prize. But Miami simply had too much horsepower as the Dolphins overcame the elements in the Houston Oilers for a 34-13 victory.
So the Dolphins and the Jets are tied at the top in the AFC East, and I believe there's only one other undefeated team in the AFC.
Right, Tom, and that team is now alone at the top of the AFC Central.
The Cincinnati Bengals think they can run on anybody, and maybe they're right. But sometimes the ball gets slippery. Last week in rainy Riverfront Stadium, Terry Bradshaw took advantage of 2 Cincinnati fumbles to run up a 10-3 halftime lead over the frustrated Bengals. Bradshaw's touchdown was to be the only one in a game dominated by 10 punts and 8 fumbles, which set up almost all of the scoring in the game. Terry Bradshaw had a game reminiscent of his rookie season. Bradshaw's futility was best exemplified by one series of downs in the 4th quarter. First down at the Cincinnati 4-yard line. Second down at the Cincinnati 20-yard line. third down at the Cincinnati 25-yard line. For Cincinnati, meanwhile, no touchdowns at all. Just 5 for 5 from West German Horst Muhlmann, and a hard-fought 15-10 victory for first place in the AFC Central.
It's still early in the season, but it'll take an awfully big upset to top the one we're about to see.
In going against the Buffalo Bills, there was no reason the San Francisco 49ers shouldn't have expected a cakewalk. But in the first quarter, John Brody found himself inundated by a wave of blue. Not only was he inundated, but he was also injured, and Brody was forced to leave the contest. Brody's replacement, number 11, Steve Spurrier, threw twice to number 82, Ted Kwolek, to give the 49ers a 13-6 lead. But then the Bills' classy runner, number 32, O.J. Simpson, swiveled and snake-hipped his way to 138 yards rushing, which left Buffalo in real good shape. Dennis Shaw to number 80, Jan White, tied the game at 13. The 49er defense was definitely not in favor of what Shaw was doing, and they let him know about it. Buffalo's hopes for an upset were dimmed as Larry Schreiber went in from the 2 to put the 49ers up 20-13. But the Bills still had their one big weapon, and O.J. ran wild. O.J. set up the tying score by number 34, Jim Braxton. With time waning, Spurrier's efforts were cut short by number 48, John Pitts, whose interception gave the Bills a chance of pulling off the biggest upset in this young season. Jim Braxton made the chance good, and Lou Saban had his first victory in his return to Buffalo. And from the looks of things, there will be more, and soon. Buffalo 27, San Francisco 20.
In ancient Yankee Stadium last week, the New York Giants had the same old problems, while the Dallas Cowboys came up with some new ones.
For the second straight week, the Dallas Cowboys looked something much less than world champions. Yes, the Doomsday defense's complicated, coordinated pattern still squelched the run. And yes, the Giants' double wing gave Cowboy defensive ends easy routes to Norm Snead's body. Yes, the Cowboy offense was still complex, but it was creaky. Only clutch-catching Billy Parks, number 21, and Lance Allworth, number 19, both shuttled from San Diego to Dallas, showed any spark as Dallas dulled out a 23-14 victory. 2 explosions by Rich Houston livened up a dead day for the Giants. Once he turned a routine post pattern into a 55-yard touchdown. Then Houston climaxed the day by burning Dallas deep and flat out beating safety Cliff Harris to the end zone. But the 94-yard touchdown was little consolation to the Giants as Dallas won its second straight 23-14.
So despite a less than inspiring performance, the Cowboys remain on top, tied with the only other NFC team with a perfect record.
And that's the retreaded Redskin Over the Hill gang. They're 1 year older and 1 year further over the hill, but senility hasn't set in yet. They still know how to win.
Last week in his first start, Tim Van Gelder beat the Baltimore Colts. But this week, his bubble was burst by the Washington Redskins as their fired-up defense hit for 60 minutes. Set up all 3 Redskin touchdowns. The first occurred when a big Berlin Biggs rush forced a throwaway that new Redskin Rosie Taylor, number 22, a 12-year veteran, picked off. Taylor's theft set up the first Redskin score, a 6-yard Billy Kilmer pass to a somewhat uncovered Jerry Smith. Borrowing the play, Gary Quazzo found an equally wide-open Cardinal, Walker Gillette, number 84. Though Gillette probably wished Quazzo had never seen him. Gillette had given the Skins a close shave, but when Jim Bakken tried a 35-yarder, it was the Cardinals who wound up with their feathers ruffled. Mike Bass, number 41, finally stole the bacon, and his 32-yard return marked the second consecutive week that Washington had scored on a blocked kick. In the second half, the Redskins' defense was at it again when Van Gelder spotted number 55, Chris Hamburger, a Redskin. Hamburger's interception was the third defensive play that resulted in a Redskin score. This one on a Kilmer to Smith rerun. Though defense had set up the Redskin touchdowns, Washington does have an offense. And on this day, most of it was Larry Brown, number 43. Brown rushed for 148 yards, and when he got past yard number 47, he became the Redskins' all-time leading rusher. Despite being in only his 4th season, Brown had eclipsed Don Bossler's Redskin record that had taken 8 years to compile. Though he threw no interceptions, Quazzo's luck wasn't much better than Van Gelder's. Jackie Smith just missed on this one, and his 13-yard end around just failed to get him into the end zone. Smith's run, however, did set up the only Cardinals score in a 24-10 Redskin victory.
The New York Jets and the Baltimore Colts played a remarkable game last week. Remarkable, if only because Joe Namath completed 15 passes for 496 yards and 6 touchdowns to ransack Baltimore's hallowed zone, which to an old cornerback like myself sounds almost sacrilegious.
The quaint high tops and bandy legs of Johnny Unitas. Articles of sports memorabilia. Thought to be obsolete beside Joe Willie's white shoes. With difficult seasons behind them, two of pro football's most storied passers met before a capacity crowd in Baltimore's Memorial Stadium. A perfect setting for a fine afternoon filled with flying footballs. But when the air cleared, the game exceeded everyone's expectations. To begin his memorable debut in Baltimore, Joe Namath found Eddie Bell for a 65-yard touchdown play. When Bobby Howfield missed the conversion, the Jets settled for a 6-0 lead. But John Unitas, looking like the All-Pro of the early 60s, was not about to step aside for Joe Willie's white shoes. And 2 series later, Unitas capped a 9-play drive with a 40-yard flea flicker from Unitas to Matty to Unitas to Havrelak and a 7-6 lead. In the second period, on first down, Namath found John Riggins behind Lonnie Hepburn, and Riggins tied to score at 13 after a 67-yard play. After the Jets were offside on the ensuing kickoff, Don McCauley received at his 7 and burned 93 yards, resetting the Colts' lead at 20-13. Then Joe Willie began undressing the famous Baltimore zone, finding Ed Bell for a 42-yard gain. And on the next play, Namath hit Don Maynard for a 28-yard rip in the seam of the Baltimore zone. Following a fumble, Namath rang up his third touchdown pass in 1 minute and 29 seconds, this time passing 10 yards to Rich Castor. Unitas put the Colts on the comeback trail, hitting Sam Havrelak down the sideline. But the Colts could not score, and Jim O'Brien's field goal attempt from the 19 was wide as the half ended. Beginning the fourth period, the methodical Unitas marshaled a 14-play drive capped by Don McCauley's one-yard run at left guard, making the score 30-27. But the Jets give it, then Namath taketh away. One play later as Joe hit Rich Castor on an 80-yard up for his 5th touchdown pass and a 37-27 lead. Undaunted, Unitas then climaxed a 10-play drive, pitching a 22-yard touchdown pass to Tom Matty as the Colts refused to yield. But one play later, Joe hit Rich Castor over Rex Kern, ending one of pro football's most exciting afternoons. In all, Namath and Unitas netted 822 yards passing, the 3rd highest combined total in NFL records. For Joe Willie, it was a great belated debut in Baltimore. For the Jets, it was their first victory over the Colts since Super Bowl III. After a great struggle, defeat is always the most unpalatable. But this afternoon, this game resulted in more than a loss and a win. This was a victory for pro football, in which the Jets outscored the Colts 44-34.
What a fantastic performance for Joe Willie Whiteshoes. 6 touchdown passes, 496 yards passing, the 3rd highest total in pro football history.
So there really can't be any question about our Best of the Week award this week, Joe Namath of the New York Jets. And Tom, I don't think there probably are better passers or passers who are just as good as he is, but I don't think there's anybody in the game who reads defenses like he does. I think that's really his strong suit.
We have to also give that offensive line a lot of credit. Nobody's getting to those bad knees, and they're keeping him very, very healthy.
Well, he's really the heart and soul of that team, and they know that if they ever lose him, that when they just sort of psychologically give up.
Joe Namath can really fire. There's no doubt about it.
How about our picks for this week? First one, let's Cincinnati at Cleveland.
Well, that division is bedlam. They play each other, it seems like, all the time, head-to-head. I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals because they can move it on the ground against that Brown defense.
I think I sort of agree with what you said, your analysis. I'm going to go with Cincinnati, too.
Okay, how about the Miami at Minnesota? You watched the Vikings last week beat Detroit.
I don't think I've ever seen them or almost any team in the league look any better, any stronger than they did either. So I got to pick them this week.
All right, I'm going to go for Miami to go to the air, and I think Bob Greasy and maybe Paul Warfield will have a super day against the Vikings. I know that's out on a limb, but I like the Dolphins.
Okay, and there's a big one, of course, on Monday night here in Philadelphia. The Eagles against the Giants. What do you think about that?
I've never gone for the Giants in my life, but I'm going to have to pick the New York Football Giants because they're playing well on the line of scrimmage, Pat. They're really playing well.
Loyalty makes me pick them, too.
Okay.
At any rate, we'll be back next week to show you what happens. I'm Pat Summerall.
I'm Tom Brookshire. We'll see you next week.